Your voice is smooth, the words are clear, but your lips don't move. Yet I can hear you, oh no, you're talking out your ass again. Yakking about things that you don't know. Your thoughts come out from a different hole, oh no, you're talking out your ass again. Well, you know that we're the best of friends, and I'm always glad to see ya. But it makes me frown when I hear the sound of your verbal diarrhea. Sense and logic both succumb to the dissertations from your bum. Oh no, you're talking out your ass again.
Hello everybody, welcome along and thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have with me Shawn Hufford and our special guest Steve or Samson. Welcome along guys, and I just need to unmute Steve.
Well, you can't, and you need to stop presenting me now.
Okay.
Steve has to unmute himself.
Okay, Steph, you can unmute yourself and say a quick hello. And you're
muted.
You there, Steve?
Sorry, hi guys, can you hear me now?
Yes, we sure can. Welcome along, Steve. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, okay. Yeah, I live in Merseyside, by the way, which covers Hoylake and New Brighton. So I thought, yeah, it was a good idea to go around and follow what Riley did.
Right. So Steve has really helped us out by providing some new images and photos, which we'll be looking at in this hangout. It's been a great help, and it was really the final proof that we needed to settle this once and for all. So thank you very much, Steve. Much appreciated.
No worries.
Now, this video hangout has been a long time coming, 3 years, in fact, just to set the scene. Of course, Anthony Riley uploaded a video back in March of 2016 called something like 8 inches per mile squared is wrong. And in that, we're actually going to review that video during this hangout. I also did a response and analysis on his claims, which I posted, I think it was on April 30th, 2016, or 2017, so that was a year later, in fact. And this was a response that Anthony had actually requested, and we'll look at that in just a little while, his request about that. So just to set the scene, what I'm going to do for the next 5 minutes is I'm going to play a video which I uploaded recently. It's 5 minutes long, so just sit back and enjoy the live chat there while we look at that together, just to set the scene. So let me just share my screen. Get up the right window will help. Okay, you see my screen, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to play the video. Just let me know if the audio is all right, because I'm relying on the microphone from my headset to relay the video, the audio. Hello YouTube, this is Dazza the cameraman. Today is Sunday, April 30th, 2017, and this video has been a long time coming. I've been having discussions with flat earth believer Anthony Riley about his claims to have filmed Blackpool Tower in the UK from Hoylake, UK. And as you can see, he's posted this video as a result of our discussion. Flat earth Anthony Riley wasn't lying. Is Dazza the cameraman honest? A test for his integrity will tell us. Let's see. We're going to come back to this video shortly, but first we'll take a look at the backstory. In March of 2016, Anthony Riley uploaded this video called 8 inches multiplied by number of miles squared is wrong. You'll find a link in the description area to his video. But in this video, he showed images of Blackpool Tower, which he claimed that he had filmed from Hoylake, UK. Now, I need to be very clear that there was never any question about the visibility of Blackpool Tower from Hoylake. According to the mathematical calculations for a globe Earth, it certainly should be visible from Hoylake. But the contention was that Anthony Riley insisted that he had filmed Blackpool Tower over an outcrop of land called Formby Beach, when it should be visible over the sea. And he asserted that Google Earth and Google Maps were wrong. And of course, this is all part of the globe Earth conspiracy in Anthony's mind. But he insisted time and time again that he took his images of Blackpool Tower from Hoylake. Let's go back to Anthony's video and recap by taking a look at his video, Flat Earth, Anthony Riley Wasn't Lying. Is Dazza the cameraman honest? A test for his integrity will tell us. Let's see. Recently, Dazza has openly questioned my honesty, along with others, on my locus or location on my Blackpool Tower video of 2016. 8 inches multiplied by number of miles squared is wrong. In the video, I claim two things. One, the tower can be seen, and two, it is not how Google Earth depicts my observation. And then from here, Anthony plays a clip from the original video, sped up so that the audio is running faster, where he points out the location at Hoylake where he claims that he took the photos of Blackpool Tower over the Formby Beach outcrop. He shows us the photos that he took, and he steps through these images. As you can see here, he's actually pointing out where Blackpool Tower is, above the outcrop of land at Formby Beach. He is very insistent that this is in fact Blackpool Tower. Now, I initially doubted this at the time because when I looked at Google Maps and Google Earth, I could see that Blackpool Tower should be out to the left. Anthony Riley goes on to say, Dazza and others simply don't accept this evidence at all. It directly contradicts their beliefs, cognitive dissonance. Initially, they said it wasn't the tower. I challenged them to find what the structure actually was then. There has been no suggestion. The position is now that they believe and have said to my face that I am not in the locus I claim. I strongly object to this allegation of dishonesty, hence this video. I know exactly, within a few meters, where I was, in fact, stood. Recently, I went back to repeat this observation and it wasn't clear enough. I did not see the tower, however, I did repeat the photos I took in the video and have given them to Dazza the cameraman to verify my original position by comparing the two photos. The little white house in the far right allows this to happen. This is the original 300mm Sigma lens on a Nikon D3300 body. Note the little house on the far right, white blob. Because the new lens is a 5500mm lens, which it isn't by the way, the angle is less, so the same image now takes more pictures, not one. I don't have the skills to stitch this together, but a friend did it for me. This is the comparison. Anthony points out where the Blackpool Tower was in the image. You will notice the difference in the topography of the land. The dunes are significantly different, right? Good point, Anthony. Dazza can now compare the position of the White House and now, honestly, verify my locus back in 2016. Will he be honest? Anthony finishes off his video by saying, Dazza, feel free to accept that I was not lying at all in the footnotes below. I will pin a comment for you to comment in. I look forward to your honesty. So there's a bit of a recap, and we're going to look at a couple of very short videos as well. But before we do, just a few comments on that. We can see, of course, that Anthony was very emphatic that he did, in fact, take his photos from Hoylake. Have you got any comments on that, Shawn, before I move on?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're going over the part where he was showing where he was at in Hoylake, it's what tipped me off that he was not being entirely honest with people was the fact that he had to resort to his Google Street View to claim where he was. And that's what got my head spinning on, is this guy actually being honest or not?
Right.
And that's where my involvement began.
Yeah. Yes, so that was interesting. His only proof that he was at Hoylake was to use Google Street View, which of course is not proof at all, because anybody can pull up Google Street View, take some screenshots and claim they were there. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I in my first encounter with him, I think I actually used Google Street View to go to Apple Road, to the Beatles, where the Beatles actually did all the recording, and said, "Oh, look, I can say I was there. Was I ever really there?" And he says, "Well, that's not proof of anything." And I threw it back at him like, "Well, that's your whole, Google Street View of Hoylake. It doesn't mean you were there. You just pulled up a Google Street View."
Right.
And apparently that was proof to him that he was there.
Crazy. Okay, now this video is just 2 minutes long. I'll probably cut it off just before the end. So once again.
It's not okay to be wrong about something and flex your dick in such a way that you think that that's going to somehow cover over the crack. No, if you're wrong about something, just if you're going to go with the Daz the cameraman claim that these pictures weren't taken from Hoylake, I'll concede them because the bigger picture doesn't change. You can have them all, Dazza, but they were taken from Hoylake. Will he be honest enough to admit that I was correct in stating that his images were not taken from Hoylake as he claimed? No, Dazza, you were not correct that the pictures were taken from not Hoylake. The pictures were taken from Hoylake and they went up and down that promenade. I don't remember exactly the positions, but I was at Hoylake to start with. And that was the point of me going down the length of the promenade to test what effect the parallax would have of the land.
Oh,
No, will you be honest enough to admit that I was correct in stating that images were not taken from Hoylake as he claimed? No, because I don't believe that you're right. I believe that I took the original pictures from Hoylake and basically went up and down the prom. I have always said that I did, and I'm not changing my position, and I don't believe you've got any evidence to prove otherwise, and that the evidence that you presented, I don't agree with. It's not okay to be wrong about something and flex your dick in such a way that you think that that's going to somehow cover over the crack. No, if you're wrong about something, just...
And so we'll pause that one there. And indeed, apparently Anthony is not very good at taking his own advice. Did I hear you trying to make a comment there, Shawn?
Oh, it's just the music got really loud for a minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Anthony has a real issue with being honest to himself as well as others, because as you just pointed out, he can't take his own advice. I mean, you guys had an hour and 20-minute call where he accepted your debunking and then hit you with a privacy complaint.
Indeed. And we're going to look at some screenshots regarding that very shortly from my Skype conversation with him back in 2017. Here you can see a screenshot where Anthony says, "I look forward to seeing your admission that I wasn't lying, mistaken, or just wrong. Oh, and a public correction would be nice too." Okay. And one more short video.
And just to point out before you start that, Anthony's definition of concede is not the actual definition of concede. He thinks concede means, oh, we'll just agree to disagree and we'll move on from that. The actual definition of concede is, I agree with the point that I was defending is now wrong. He doesn't understand that definition. He's a word he doesn't understand.
Right. He's very good for trying to put definitions out there as well, but it's like his use of what he refers to as bendy light. It's called bendy light whenever globe earthers use it, but then it's suddenly called refraction when it suits him and he's using it.
How many videos did he make that says refraction is BS?
Yeah. Okay.
You either accept it or you don't. With both of us.
It's because you have a landmass in view that contradicts what Google Earth is saying.
Sean, the landmass we're looking at is Formby Beach, Formby Sands, from when viewed from Hoylake. Okay, that's what we actually see. So what that means for me to be in that position to represent that, I need to be like here, because that's kind of somewhere along here. But I wasn't there. I was 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 here. So that tells you that either I'm lying and a disingenuous piece of shit, or Google Maps is wrong. Or I'm lying and a disingenuous piece of shit.
Well, it would seem to be the latter, as we're going to find out.
Definitely.
Well,
You know, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and with Anthony, I was always reluctant to call him an outright liar. But sadly, the experience that I've had with this, with Anthony doubling down and just, you know, sticking to his claim that he was at Hoylake despite all of the evidence to the contrary. And, you know, as I said, this is 3 years later. I was actually quite happy to let this go. You know, he did a privacy strike. It was a privacy strike against my video back in 2017, and it was taken down. And basically, I had moved on and was happy to leave it in the past. But then suddenly, I think it was in January of this year, we get this video, or is it? No, not that one. This one here, Dazza the cameraman lied to ballers about me. This was streamed live on January 26, 2019. And this attack came completely out of the blue. This was 2 years after the fact, almost. And then, of course, with my recent response, we saw, where is it? This one here. Doubling down, Dazza dies a dastardly death again, he says. And it was an epic rant. It's still on his channel. If you haven't seen it, it's recommended viewing. It's just hilarious. And I think he drank too much coffee because he was talking really, really fast. It really was hilarious. So recommended viewing.
Now, I'd like to point out that for those that don't want to go to watch it, I suggest you do as well, because in this video, he literally says that Dazza attacked him out of the blue with this Hoylake stuff, which is a complete and total, utter lie by Anthony.
Yeah. It seems to me, and I did ask Anthony about this, it seems to me that somebody possibly made reference to my earlier video, which triggered him. And I think that's what resulted in Dazza the cameraman lied to the ballers about me, that video. Okay, so we're going to look at, where has it gone? There. The Skype recordings. This was back in April, 16th of April, 2017, my Skype conversation with Anthony. And because we were going backwards and forwards privately, looking, he was sending me photos and so on for my analysis, which he was very keen to see. As you can see here, he says, I've had the photo comparison back. You still think I was further up the coast when I took the first images? Let's discuss my locus based on the new evidence. Not on a hangout, just over Skype. I do want to record it though and upload it, but I find Skype is much better quality than a Google Hangout. So you'll note that. He says, I do want to record it though and upload it. And in another message on Tuesday the 18th, he says, really, I'd like the comparison analysis done, recorded on a Skype call. It's damaging when I'm accused of not being somewhere I actually was. So that's exactly what I did. Go ahead, Sean.
from a legal standpoint, this was the last message about the recording of the Skype call, right? This was the newest one.
I think so. Yes.
Okay. From legalese here, really, I like the comparison and analysis done recorded on a Skype call. So that tells Daza that he is giving permission for when he wants to do his analysis, as long as he's providing or notifying them he's doing the analysis, he's got permission to record the call. That stands because at no time did he ever retract that until after the fact.
Yep.
And that doesn't work, Anthony.
So I went ahead and presented my analysis to Anthony exactly as he had requested via a Skype call as he requested. And I recorded it as he had requested. And I uploaded it to my channel as he had requested, basically. Now, it's true that I didn't say to him at the start of the call, Anthony, I'm recording this, because A, he had requested it at least twice, and as I recall, I believe he also requested it via voice call. And B, I was pretty sure that if I told him that I was actually recording the analysis, that he would not have been quite so keen to go ahead, given that my findings were obviously against him. So the video was uploaded, and it was up for a couple of weeks at least. And then I received, in fact, it might have even been up for a couple of months. I'd have to check back. But then, of course, I received a privacy strike from YouTube, and the video was taken down. Now, you will have noticed when I was playing the first 5-minute video before, the images were quite fuzzy. Unfortunately, I'd not saved the original video on my computer, which was most unusual for me. And the only copy that I had was on YouTube. And when the video was taken down, I lost all access to it. But with YouTube's new beta studio, I actually found a hole in their system, and I was able to screen record a low quality version of it. So that's what we were seeing part of there. Okay, Shawn, anything to add on that?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so just looking at my notes here. Okay, now just to look at the most recent Skype message. This was on March 30th, 2019, so just a week or two ago. So Anthony and I were discussing his videos, and he actually asked me if I believe that he was outright lying, just a basic fraud and all that sort of thing. And my reply to him was, I'll leave that for others to judge, Tony. I like to think not, to be honest. But what this is about is that I did an honest analysis on your video back in 2017, and you told you that none of your images were taken from Hoylake. You denied this and have called me a liar and all sorts of other names, including Dickhead Dazza, etc., which was in his live video. 2 months ago, you posted a completely unprovoked video publicly accusing me of lying to the ballers about you. You kicked the sleeping dog, and this is the result. I was happy to leave it in the past until your sudden attack video of 2 months ago. So now I'm going to put this to bed once and for all. Tony, none of your images in your 8 inches is wrong video were taken from Hoylake, not one. And here is Anthony's reply, which has some very interesting information in it. Bring it, he says. My partner was with me on that day. She knows I was where I said I was. I won't even watch or respond to your video because by virtue of the fact that you claim none were taken, you must have done something wrong. On that video, 8 inches per mile, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. Now, this is a key point. The whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. We drove some way down the beach as the tide was out the first time I ever went there. Well, we're going to look at that claim a little bit later on. That's what you're seeing in the video. Do your worst, but I won't need to watch. You have something wrong and are simply going to launch a reckless, retributive attack on me because I poked a sleeping dog. You did lie about me. You are lying again now and finding an angle to give something to chew on. I've been back many times and it doesn't change. What is seen in the video is what I took at the time. Do your worst. I won't need to watch. So that was the final word that I had from Anthony Liley back on March 30th, 2019. So some key points. Again, he reiterates that the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake, and that he drove down the beach as the tide was out, he claims. And that's what we're seeing in his video. Okay, so let's have a look at the, I think I should probably play some of his video. I haven't pulled that up, so let me just do that. Okay, just be with me. Oh, here it comes. Okay, so we can skip ahead to some of this because he sets the scene in this video to start with. You can see that, can't you guys?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so he sets the scene. Basically, he was doing a comparison between the CN Tower and the Blackpool Tower. He points out that the Blackpool Tower is sort of the biggest and closest tower around, local to him in the UK. And so he does some calculations. He's actually trying to do a distance calculation. He found he couldn't go online. He checked the curvature calculator, and the interesting thing here is that he set an eye height of 0.1 feet. Well, by my math, 0.1 feet is 1.2 inches. 1.2 inches above the water. So we're going to come back to that. The other key point is that he sets the distance, the target distance, as 30 miles. So the distance between Hoylake and Blackpool Tower is indeed 30 miles. And the fact that he's using 30 miles is a very important point, because obviously from any of the photos that he's presenting, we're working with a distance of 30 miles, which means that he must be at Hoylake for his calculations to be relevant. If he's at a different location, then the distance that he's working with is therefore going to be different, and he would need to recalculate that. So he starts his video around about here. Got my sound up. So again, I'm going to play that. Let me know, please, if there is any problem with the sound. And we're going to watch about 5 minutes. I might stop in places to make comments. Shawn, if you've got anything that you want to jump in, just let me know.
Will do.
Give them values. Okay.
The only thing I found funny was Anfield Stadium from West Kirby.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come to that, Steve.
This is today, and I parked here in this little bay here. All we did was got the dogs out, walked around here, down the ramp, got onto the sand around here somewhere. And these windmills in the back here, you see on my photos in a bit, but we're looking at this background here. And there's a little bit in here, but it's in this kind of area. And you're looking up towards Blackpool, okay?
Okay, is the audio coming through on that all right?
It could be turned up a little bit.
Okay, so once again, as we pointed out, this was Anthony's sole proof that he was actually at Hoylake using Google Street View, which isn't proof at all, because anybody can do it. As Shawn said, he went to the crossing where the Beatles crossed the road.
So let's get rid of that. These are the findings. Now, this makes it look, I must have had the camera set on a shit setting, but this makes it look like it was a dark day. It was actually really sunny, and I actually got a little bit of a suntan. I can feel my arms are burning. Now, let's zoom into the background. Now, this isn't a good picture, I accept, but the tower is here. So I'm going to Can you see the tower there? It isn't a good picture, I accept, but that's the tower. I do have better pictures that are coming up. In the foreground, you have the sand dunes of Formby Beach. In the background, you have Blackpool. If you get Google Maps up and you look at the line of sight from where I'm stood in Hoylake, up the coastline, Formby Beach is over to the right, it's over here somewhere, and Blackpool protrudes to the left. But in actual fact, it's slightly different. So Google Maps is not accurate with what I saw today with regard to Formby Beach and with regard to where Blackpool Tower is in relation to it. Blackpool Tower is clearly behind it, but on Google Maps it indicates that Formby Beach is slightly to the right, and we have a direct line of sight to Blackpool Tower, but we don't. So Google Maps is not accurate in this instance.
Right, so that's a key point. And before we go on with that, I'm just going to bring up Google Earth, which I forgot to open before, so bear with me. So that was one of his key points. One, of course, was that he believed that Blackpool Tower should not be visible from Hoylake, but in fact it is. And the other contention was that Google Maps is wrong because the line of sight to Blackpool Tower is out over the crop of Formby. So Formby, there it is there. Okay, so this yellow line, this is location from Hoylake, where he started from, supposedly. There is the road that he was pointing out in Street View, and he claims that he drove down here onto the beach, and through discussions with him, we placed him about here. So the yellow line actually takes us straight through to Blackpool Tower. There is Blackpool Tower, okay? And so obviously that yellow line that we see is going across the water. It's not going across the land, which is Formby Point. But he is actually looking across this red line. That is the approximated direction that he was looking at, which he claimed was Blackpool Tower. So he was obviously looking at something else, or he was in a different location. Now, I think at the start, we actually believed that he was in fact looking at Blackpool Tower, which meant that he would have to be at a different location. And
Correct.
This is where the whole contention began, where he absolutely denied that he was at a different location. Anything to add on that, Shawn?
I was just saying correct, because we were assuming that he was seeing Blackpool Tower over Formby Beach. And when we actually made a postulation that it might not have been the tower itself, and he was just mistaken on what we actually wanted him to take his GPS and a compass back out and refilm it, and he absolutely refused to do so. So we've had to reverse engineer all of his photos ever since then. And before we were just doing it with Google Earth and whatever we can get from that. And yeah, well, I'll leave the rest so I don't spoil anything.
Yep. Okay, so I'll carry on with the video for a bit. Let me turn it up again.
Okay, zoom back out. I didn't have a good picture here. So what I did, there's some of the pile.
I'll just go back to that image. We just saw.
So what I.
This is a key image, which I will be coming back to very shortly. So just remember that image, and also the one next to it of some buildings.
There's some of the pile of things, wave, whatever they call, fucking, yeah, them. So what we did was moved further down the promenade to try and get us a little bit closer. And I don't know whether it would get us closer, but it felt like it probably would do. So again, there's a tower from a different vantage point. Notice that the foreground has moved to the left, but the tower has remained still. That's, well, interpret that any way you want to. Okay, so
Then we moved again. Ignore that picture. It's not a relevant bit now. That one.
Okay, I think we'll just jump in right here and address it as we go through. What did we just see there, Shawn?
Oh, it's something we're supposed to ignore that picture because that doesn't place him in Hoylake.
Steve, I think you've recently photographed this this object that he told us just to ignore. Is that correct, Steve?
Oh yeah, I know that object very well.
Can you tell me exactly where this object is, please, Steve?
Sure, it's in New Brighton.
New Brighton?
Yeah.
Is that anywhere near Hoylake?
No, it's quite a bit of a distance away.
How long would you say it would take to drive from Hoylake to New Brighton?
Oh, at least 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, according to Google Maps, when I plotted the course with the most likely course that he was going to take, considering what he's told me since, that would have been a trip of 20 minutes and a direct line of sight along the coast without going by road. It's a distance of about 5.5, 6 miles. 6 miles down to the end of Brighton.
Can you do me a favor, Dazza? Can you bring up his Skype comment to you where he says the whole lot of the images were taken at Hoylake?
Yep, sure thing.
Just want to hammer this home because Anthony can't keep a story straight. There
it is.
Oh, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. As long as you ignore all the pictures that weren't, which is all of them.
Yep. And also, let's not forget too, where are we? What he said in this video here.
Somewhere along here, but I wasn't there. I was 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 here.
So he wasn't where?
He wasn't in New Brighton, according to him.
Apparently he wasn't in New Brighton. He was in Hoylake. So let's carry on. Well, that lighthouse. Let's have a look on Google Earth where that lighthouse is. So, according to Anthony, he was filming from down on the beach at Hoylake. In fact, he said, I was lay flat on my belly, he said, in part of it. And he was talking about going along the promenade, which would be along here. Okay. You get to a point along here where you can't drive any further. This is a walking track along there. I think that is as far as you can go by road. Okay. So that's Hoylake. Let's zoom out a little bit. And this is New Brighton over here. And the lighthouse, there is the lighthouse there. So it's quite funny that in his images there, he's got a picture of the lighthouse and he's supposedly at Hoylake. How can this be? Anyway.
High tide as well.
Yeah.
And just to refresh again, because I'm going to hammer this home and I'm going to beat it into his head. What was the date that he said that the whole lot of the pictures came from Hoylake in that Skype message?
Well, I don't have the actual date, but he did say to me in one of his comments.
Well, it's in his last message to you.
Sorry, what was that?
It's in his last message to you.
Okay, let's have a look. I might be missing something.
So if you go up to the top where your message was, it'll say the date that you did your message, which was Saturday, March 30th of this year.
Yeah.
So even though he's conceded the fact that we caught him out at being at Blackpool, or not Blackpool Tower, but at New Brighton at one point, he actually didn't have a defense for you either in your first Skype call with him or in your actual live debunking on his stream. He's now gone and said after that all of them were taken in Hoylake with evidence that already shows that he's lying about that.
Yeah, which is bizarre. Maybe his memory's not so good. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were asking me of the date that he actually supposedly took the images. One interesting thing I picked up in his video was that he said at the start of it that he and his partner drove down to Hoylake today. So supposedly he's presenting these images on the same day that he actually took them, which makes me wonder why when he presented them, he didn't look at them and go, hang on a minute, these images aren't at Hoylake, they're from New Brighton, because at least he should recognize that the lighthouse is at New Brighton, not at Hoylake. There is not.
That is exactly why he says, if you go back a couple of seconds, where he actually says in the video, oh, just ignore that one.
Yeah, yep. Let's have a listen to that.
That's, well, interpret that any way you want to. Okay, so then we moved again. Ignore that picture. It's not relevant, but neither is that one.
Just ignore that picture. It's not relevant. Neither is that one, he says. I think it's very relevant to your location, Anthony Liley, considering that there is no lighthouse at Hoylake. Go ahead, Shawn.
No, you got it.
Yep. Now, Steve just mentioned something we should probably point out here as well. Okay. Notice the tide there. This black line at the bottom of the lighthouse pretty much shows the high tide mark. Okay. Now, what was it that Anthony said in his comment about the tide?
The tide was way out.
Yeah, we drove some way down the beach as the tide was out first time I ever went there. That is what you're seeing in the video.
So Anthony is literally claiming that this is low tide.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, let's examine that.
Let's examine that right now. Let me see. Lighthouse. Okay. So here is the first image that we see of the lighthouse, which is image number 0166 in the photos that Anthony presented in his video. And then a little bit further on, he plays a video. And during that video, he's waving the camera around. And for a couple of seconds, the lighthouse comes into view. And here is a screenshot from it. His video 0205. And again, we can see the tide there. This is where he's saying, I'm lay flat on my belly. This is where he claims that his camera is 0.1 of a foot above the water, or 1.2 inches. Okay. And again, just to reiterate, that's the same comment in Skype that we were looking at. We drove some way down the beach as the tide was out the first time I ever went there. That's what you're seeing in the video. Well, this is what it looks like when the tide is out with this lighthouse at New Brighton, not Hoylake, by the way. And using Anthony's image on the right, we can see where the tide level is there. And as I say, this is what it would look like if the tide was actually out.
Little bit of a difference.
And here are some photos that Steve took for us on the 28th of March this year. And so I would say that the tide was about mid-height. Now, this is interesting because there is actually a breakwater wall here that we can see. And in Anthony's photos, that breakwater is actually submerged under the water.
You can actually see it if you look at it. If you can zoom that in a little bit, see that that perfectly horizontal thing going across the frame is that breakwater.
Yeah,
that's the wave that's coming up over it.
Yep, that would be right. And here is a shot that Steve took a little bit further back. Okay, and this image here, I found a bunch of images of a lighthouse using Google search, and here's old Mario. Somehow it reminds me of Mario getting out of the lighthouse. And there's a ladder there propped up against it, and using that image, I've cropped Mario there, and let's assume that he's, say, 5'6", and we can see that the water is up to about his knee, so he's sort of half cut off there. So if he's 5.5 feet, that's 11 feet up to there, and maybe add a few more feet. I would say about 14, 15 feet.
And that's not even the lowest tide.
Yeah. And also, if you Google information about rungs on ladders, then according to the standards that most countries have, the rungs shall not be more than 12 inches apart and no less than 10 inches. So I think we can assume that they are about a foot apart. So, and part of it is submerged. So I'm thinking that it's probably about 2 feet, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 foot ladder. And if we swing that ladder out to about there, yeah, so probably maybe about 16, 17 feet up to there. So it certainly wasn't low tide, as Anthony claimed in his comments. That is what the tide looks like when it's fairly high. Okay, so there's another claim by Anthony Liley that has been completely debunked. He didn't drive down the beach because the tide was up. He couldn't have.
No, he couldn't have drove out on that beach that day.
Yep. So we'll look at a bit more of his video, just a few minutes more, and then we're going to get right into the actual photo forensics. And we've got a big reveal coming up as well. What was the object that Anthony claimed was Blackpool Tower? Well, just a few weeks ago, I was able to positively identify that object, and we have photos and even some very good drone video of it, which we'll be looking at. So let's have a look a bit more of the video.
Then we moved again. Ignore that picture. It's not a relevant bit now. There's that one.
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, so now as we're moving to the right, the foreground is moving to the left. The tower stays still. Well, the tower is over here. It looks like the tower's moved, but it's not the tower that's moved. It's the foreground that's moved. The foreground has moved to the left. Well, there's the tower. Okay. Bear in mind, we couldn't see the tower at all. Yet that looks almost at full height, but for the dunes that are in front of it. But that looks like the tower at full height. I just wish it was a better picture. So at this point, I'm thinking, that curvature calculator said that it wouldn't even be visible. Now I am lay on my belly. Right. I'm lay on my belly. I spots this ship taking off. It's obviously an oil ship, I think. It's an oil carrying boat. Now, I wasn't going to do a boat disappearing over the horizon video or photos, but I ended up doing it because it just happened to be there. This is at full zoom, and this is at no zoom. I'm lay on my belly on the beach. Obviously, it's the dry part of the beach. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to get in the wet sand bit, but I'm just taking a couple of time-lapse photos of the boat disappearing. You see he's making a bit of a turn. Ignore that one. He's making a bit of a turn. Getting further away.
Now, this is indeed an interesting photo, as Anthony says himself. In fact, let's hear what he has to say.
Now, this is an interesting picture. I allowed the dog to be in the foreground to show that I am on the beach, and you can see that the water is breaking there. So I'm as close to the water as I can get. I am at water's level.
So he's at water's level, and let's remember that in the calculator he set his camera height or eye height at 0.1 feet or 1.2 inches. Let's go back to the Skype comments.
Oh, smallest dog.
Yeah. Now, I asked Anthony about the the height of the dog and his partner as well, because it's his partner. I've redacted her name there. Walking along the beach, you can see the dog is just down in the corner. And I said, if you can confirm it is your partner, then I just want to know how tall she is in feet and inches, so I can use her height to do some calculations. And I also said, thank you. And if you get the time, can you tell me how tall your dog is to the middle of its back, not the head? Okay, so his partner is 5'10". Not quite 5'11". And so more to the point, the dog, he says 13 inches to the middle of its back. I just happen to have a tape measure next to me and the dog. You hit lucky, he says. So 13 inches from the floor to the middle of its back. Do we see a problem here?
Like I said, world's smallest dog.
Well, if he's lay on his belly and his camera height is at 1.2 inches, then as the flat earthers always like to say, you know, the horizon is at eye level. Well, it certainly is when you're at sea level. It's not when you go further up, of course, as we've proven many times. But we can assume that the horizon here is pretty much at 0 degrees altitude, in fact, straight out from his eye, which means that his dog must be microscopic if he's at 1.2 inches above the water. He says that it's 13 inches to the middle of its back, and that dog is not even right down on the water's edge. And we can see in some of the lighthouse photos, using the angle to the horizon and so on, also looking at the placement of the beacons, that he's clearly not 1.2 inches above the water. I would estimate his height being around about maybe 4 feet above the water. What do you reckon, Shawn?
I was going to guess between 5 and 6 above the water line. Not.
Okay. Well, we'll carry on.
Because if his claim was true, where he was 2 inches above the water line, he would see nothing but dog paws.
Yeah.
Until he got to the horizon.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can even just see in the geometry of what we're seeing there with beacons and the sand and so on, that he's clearly not right down on the water as he claimed and based all of his calculations on. That's a key point.
Well, that goes back to my first serious interaction with Riley, and where he actually earned the nickname Liley, was dealing with another person's video over some lighthouse called the Needle, where he was, even though the person that uploaded the video said that he was at a height of 12 feet above the waterline, Anthony put it at 2, and then based all of his conclusions based on the number he literally pulled out of his butt.
Yeah.
And we got a hold of the actual guy that made the video. He adamantly says 12 feet. Me and Sly went through it, found that he was more like 24 feet if you include the pier he was on, as well as the tripod height, based on the railing that was in the actual video. And Anthony still stuck to his gun, saying, well, I'm going to say it's 2 feet, and never gave a reason. So that's when I started calling him Liley, and he's lived up to it ever since.
Right. And this seems to be something that he keeps on doing, is that he doesn't allow for the ground elevation of his target. For example, Blackpool Tower, as I recall, is 518 feet tall, but the ground that it's sitting on is at 39 feet above sea level. And he has not included that 39 feet in his calculation. Obviously, that's going to make a difference.
But all this is neither here nor there for this stream.
Yeah. Okay, let's carry on.
Boats disappearing. Now, on these 3 photos, I'm flicking 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. That looks like it's dropping. Might be wrong, but just my observation. So this is at the zoom, and this is straight away, this is without the zoom, but I'm lay on my belly. The camera is touching the beach, okay? This is zooming in. At this point, I'm beginning to lose it. I'm struggling with getting the focus because he's getting quite far away. And now I'm getting ready to take a video. But I mean, this boat's getting really far away now at this point. Again, I allowed this to happen. Boats in the background, dogs in the foreground. There's the water breaking. I'm right on the water's edge.
No, you're not.
Okay. So as this boat's now making his turn, he's making a right turn. Again, that's zoom. That's without the zoom. That's how close to the water I am. I'm focused in on the background. Foreground's blurred. Medium ground is in focus, but I'm trying to focus on that. But I think what the camera's done is focused on this because it can't see this anymore because it's getting that small. So this is the last photo I took before I did a video, which is this. Now, unfortunately, this little fucking icon thingy gets right in the way.
Oh, don't sit there. Move.
Ah, got rid of that thing. Okay, so now bear in mind how flat to the ocean I am here. Now at this point, what I want to
So from here, he jumps in and goes back to the curve calculator and makes some comments about how Blackpool, well, basically the ships shouldn't be visible because that's what he's focusing on at this stage. I'll skip ahead through some of that, but before I skip ahead, I just want to ask a question. Has anybody noticed anywhere he has said that he has left Hoylake?
Nope.
No.
He's made no mention of the fact that he has left Hoylake, where he claimed right at the start and showed us from Google Street View that that's where he was filming from. He's made no mention of the fact that the lighthouse that we saw is actually at New Brighton.
Well, he did say that he walked a bit up the promenade.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that there's a promenade at Hoylake, which of course is where he claims that he was filming from. So I'll just step through the bits where he's, I think it was just there. Have I gone past it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So once again, he's got the eye height at 0.1 feet or 1.2 inches. And again, very important to remember, target distance 30 miles. Now, this is a key point because 30 miles is the distance between Blackpool Tower and where?
Hoylake.
Hoylake. Not New Brighton, Hoylake. But he's still got 30 miles in there. So let's carry on a little bit.
This video is totally and utterly inconsistent with what it says. That boat is on zoom and it is fucking miles away. So at this point, I'm thinking the maths isn't right here. The maths may well work. The maths proves that the maths is working. You can do the calculation, but it isn't showing what I'm seeing because this boat is way more than 0.3 miles away. It's probably 5, 6, 7 miles away. It's miles.
Okay, and just to clarify his point, of course, if you set your eye height at 0.1 feet, you're going to get a horizon distance of about 0.3 miles. If you set your eye height at 6 feet, then your horizon height is 3 miles. Obviously, he did not set the correct eye height. So the calculations, the results that he's working with are completely wrong to start with. So I'm just going to play out the last bit of this video before we step ahead, because again, we're going to see that lighthouse, which is quite key.
Let's see how far away from it. I am laying on my belly because I'm actually on my belly.
Can't get rid of that now.
Oh, there it is.
See this I've improved.
There it is.
Okay, so we all saw the lighthouse there. Let me just pull it back a little bit.
Can't get rid of that now.
And how's the tide looking?
pretty high.
Pretty much all the way in.
There it is. There's the boat. I mean, that's miles away, yeah?
And where is the lighthouse?
New Brighton.
New Brighton.
Okay, so I'm just scrubbing through now because he spends quite a bit of time dwelling on these ships, and it's quite funny. We could do a separate video on that on itself, because he's comparing the photos of the ship that he took earlier to when it was moving away, and he's making comments saying things like, well, that's evidence of curvature right there. That ship appears to be sinking, doesn't it? You know, that seems to be proof that the Earth is a globe. Yes, Anthony, that's exactly right, Anthony. And by the way, up in the corner here, you've got the image number for each photo. We'll look at that again in a minute. So he spends several minutes talking about that. Okay, now it gets interesting again here. Were you going to comment just before I play that, Shawn?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so let's see what happens next. He's finished looking at the ships. It's time to move on. Oh, by the way, where are we still?
Hoylake. Remember the whole thing at Hoylake.
Okay, it gets really funny here now, guys. Just, you know, hold on to your seats.
But then it starts going a bit shit.
Sure does.
Forget about this one. Oh, that's Anfield, by the way. That's.
Oh, where's this, Shawn?
Well, according to Anthony, it's Hoylake.
Do you recognise this, Steve?
Yeah, it's a famous stadium in Liverpool.
In Liverpool, is that anywhere near Hoylake?
Well, it's quite a bit away, and there's quite a bit of land in the way between Hoylake and Liverpool.
Right. Would you say that you can see the stadium from Hoylake?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay, let's carry on.
The new Goliath stand at the back of Anfield, the main stand. They're building it over the existing stand, so the existing stand was similar in height to the one that's opposite. But the building that is fucking massive. It really is massive. This picture was just to show it in the context of the background. I mean, really, Anfield is a good stand anyway, stadium anyway. But anyway, I digress. Let's go back to on topic. Now I'm in a place called West Kirby.
Oh, where did he say he is?
West Kirby.
West Kirby. Steve, do you know where West Kirby is?
Yeah, it's pretty much quite a little bit south of like Hoylake, so it's quite far away.
Right. So at this point, Anthony is actually here, and he's looking across the water here to the Anfield Stadium, which is over here. There's the stadium that he's pointing out in his photos.
Yeah.
And he's just told us that he is at, what's it called? West Kirby.
Right. Can you bring up the screenshot of your last conversation with Anthony, please? Now, mind you, this is Anthony's most recent claim. The whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. So his original video contradicts what his most recent claim is. Just to point that out.
Yeah.
So
now, can you go to Google Earth and show people where West Kirby is?
I sure can. So again, Anthony has taken this photo from here across to Anfield. This is New Brighton. The lighthouse is there. So he's taken some photos here, and then he's come around the corner to take the photos that we've just looked at there. So let's that's the whole New Brighton promenade along there. Okay. And then he would have come along this road on the way. He could have either gone that way or possibly along here past Liso. And just moving back to Hoylake, which is where he claims that he was filming the whole lot from. And where is West Kirby? It's over here. Now, bear in mind, of course, and I don't know, Shawn, I know that you were looking for that quote in that that hangout that you did with Anthony and I. What was his comment about locations?
Us damn Yankees don't know what the fuck we're talking about because we don't live there. He does. He knows what the fuck he's looking at. Sorry to use the F word, but that's verbatim.
And that's verbatim, right? So he's just told us, as he's taking this photo over here, looking towards the Anfield Stadium, that he's at a place called West Kirby. And West Kirby is, in fact, over here on the other side of this area of land. And you cannot see the stadium, the Anfield Stadium, from West Kirby. Now, what does this tell me about Anthony's knowledge of actually where he is and you know, local knowledge of the area itself?
I'll refer to the intro song.
Yeah. So let's carry on a little bit. Turn up the volume again.
It's on the other side of the peninsula. It's nearer to Liverpool, but it's still on the same thing. Now, again, there is the tower. There it is. Okay, it isn't clear, and I accept that. And if you can criticize that if you want to, and I would have to accept it because it isn't clear. There it is. There we go. There's the tower. Now, when we go back to this little beastie.
Okay, so he spends a bit more time talking about calculations based on 0.1 feet above sea level, and again, a target distance of 30 miles, which again, I need to reiterate is the distance between Blackpool Tower and where?
Hoylake.
Hoylake. I think we've got it all, that it was supposed to be Hoylake. That's what he's been banging on about the whole time. So now we're going to go ahead.
Just to shout out another channel. Just for Planer Walk, if you're watching, ahoy, Hoylake.
Yeah, ahoy. All right. I actually love these photos here, the last few that he showed, because in one of them, if I can find it. Okay, this is quite interesting here. You've got, it sort of looks a bit like a groove there. This is a barrier in front of him. And then you've got a gap, and there's something sticking up there. And then we can see some more of the barrier. So it almost looks like a gap in the barrier. So we'll come back to that. So now we're going to launch into some of the real photo forensics. But I think before we do, because he was actually pointing out the tower again, as he's done all the way through, and he's been looking at the Formby landmass, is supposedly Blackpool Tower. What is it that he was looking at? And this is the big reveal. Actually, let's look at that in Google Earth before I show you the video. So this red line from Hoylake represents the supposed line that he was looking at across Formby. Remember that the yellow line is from Hoylake through to Blackpool Tower. So that's the correct line, which would be out over the water. But he claimed that he was seeing Blackpool Tower over the Formby Peninsula. And therefore, he said, Google Maps and Google Earth were wrong, which of course is ridiculous. So let me see if I can find it without turning on the marker. I might need to turn it on. No, I know where it is. Okay, so the other day I was sort of looking around this area to see, is there something that it could possibly be? Anthony thought maybe it was a temporary structure like a crane or whatever, because in the end he did actually concede that it wasn't Blackpool Tower. He has been back to Hoylake since, and this is a very important point. He has been back to Hoylake, and he has filmed Blackpool Tower from Hoylake. And where was it?
Over the water.
Over the water, not over the point. So now in Google Earth, you can turn on historical imagery, which is, let me see, is it that one? Yes. And so I was looking at some of the historical imagery, and where was it? There it is. I spotted something interesting. I could see this black line. Can you see that there, guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ah, I thought that's a bit bizarre. What could that be? And it's sort of got this orange thingy around it there. Let's step back to some of the earlier images taken on a different day where the sun is a different position. Oh, what do we see there?
That would be a triangle.
A triangle. So
I bet it's either 1, 1, and 1.
So we appear to have a very tall pole with a triangle on the top. What could that possibly be? Here is another one on a different day, and obviously not as clear. Well, there's a good one. Again, so it's casting quite a huge shadow there. All right. Let's go to the video. The big reveal. Now, this is a shout out for this channel, Emil Kiwe. Now, I'm not sure if that's a play on words there, a Milky Way or Emil Kiwe. And this is his video, Formby Beach Sunset, which was uploaded on June 17th, 2017. And bear in mind that Anthony's video was made in March of 2016, so more than a year before this video was taken. So let's have a look at this video here. I'll just step it forward a little bit. So this is fantastic drone footage of Formby Point. And at the start, it's going to be rather hard to see, but it will become clear. You can actually see the beacon right here. And it has the, has it got the triangle on it? Yes, it has. Yep. And then he does a fly around. So there it is in all its glory, the Formby Point beacon. And this is in fact the object which Anthony had mistook for Blackpool Tower. Now, on the 10th of July 2018, was it? I have to check again. The triangle was actually removed. So currently it does not have this triangle on top. And they're going to restore it when they get the funds. So I've got some information on that we'll look at. Now, I'll just bring that back as it comes around. I'll just point something out. Where are we?
Sly just pointed out something that I haven't thought about yet, but you can actually get the height of the tower using the time and date that the Google image was taken and actually find out where the sun was at on that time.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And actually get the actual height of it just from that alone.
Yeah.
But Dad took a more direct route.
Yep. Okay, so from this angle here, we're actually looking towards New Brighton. New Brighton is over here. And Liverpool is over there. Correct me if I'm mistaken, please, Steve.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yep. And Hoylake will be over here, or maybe even off to the right a little bit further.
Yeah.
So we can see from this angle that with the triangle attached, it would have even been more visible back then than what it is now when Steve went back and took some photos. Remember that the triangle was actually attached in March of 2016 when Anthony took his photos, okay? And New Brighton, once again, is over here. So from this line of sight, we've got clear view from the triangle to New Brighton. So there's no question of the sand dunes and hills being in the way and blocking the view.
Well, quick question before you change the screen. Is that a big white boat just to the left of the triangle?
Good point, Shawn. Good point. And we're going to see this big white boat that's not a boat. It's actually a house. in many of the images, and it was actually a key identifying landmark to help us work out what we were looking at. Okay, now, so this was the index of photos, and before I go into that, beacon, Blackpool Tower, what am I looking for? Formby Point beacon, there we go. So this was some of the first breakthrough information that I found on the beacon there, again with the triangle attached. And it says, where is it? It's at least 10 meters in height. The marker is very old and has suffered damage. We're happy to say that the navigation marker at Formby Point is now being restored. The structure was cordoned off for a while and looked rusty and unsafe. So cordoned off, that would have been the orange safety fencing around it. On 10th of July 2018, the triangle top was removed and dismantled for safety reasons. Okay, and it talks about the restoration there. And I managed to get in contact with the people involved in the restoration. And you can't see my question there, but the navigation marker structure comprises a large timber post approximately 20 meters tall, topped with a triangular sign as shown in photo 14. The marker post is predominantly square in section, approximately 400 by 400 at the base, but appears to taper to a smaller circular post, perhaps 250 millimeters diameter over the top 1.52 meter section. A second timber post, approximately 150 by 150 millimeters square, is strapped to the side of the main post at the top. Let's the bit about the triangle. The sign appears to be formed by an outer steel angle frame infilled with horizontal timbers arranged in vertical hit and miss pattern. So you get all the details on there, and underneath they say that they're hoping to refit the triangle once they've obtained costing for the replacement. Okay, and again, let's look at a few images that I found. In fact, there's a website, geocaching.com. So all these people are geocaching with their GPS devices, finding the mystery object and posting their proof that they were there. And through one of the Formby Point Facebook pages, somebody there actually went and posed this photo for me, this one here. And you can see that the triangle is missing there. And the lady that sent me these photos, she tells me that her husband is 5'8" or 68 inches. And so we can use that to work out the approximate height of the pole to the top there. And then remember that the triangle is attached on top there. So approximately 40 feet there. Okay, so now we're really going to get into the forensics of the photos. I know it's been a long time waiting, and so thank you for bearing with us. So again, these are screenshots from Anthony's video where he shows us that he was at where?
Hoylake.
Hoylake. Google Street View showing Hoylake, and he points out here where he took the dogs. I think he said he drove down onto the beach or took the dogs down onto the beach. Maybe he said he parked over here and then took the dogs down onto the beach where he was at Hoylake. And throughout the video, of course, that we've just reviewed, we don't hear him say anywhere that he had left Hoylake. And there is the index of the photos that he presented. There is the lighthouse, by the way, which was that key image. And there is the video, the one video that he presented there. And the photos looking across the Anfield Stadium. Let me see 0147 before it's zoomed in. Because 0147, of course, is the very first image. And so that is a key image. I'm trying to put, oh, there it is. The first one before he zoomed in on it. Just make sure that's full size. Yep. So the very first image, which of course is supposedly at where?
Hoylake.
Hoylake, first image. And then the next image was 149. There was no image 148. There was an image missing. So image number 149. Do you recognize this at all, Steve?
Yeah, that's in a place called Crosby.
Oh, where would you be standing to look at that, to take that photo, Steve?
I would say New Brighton from that angle.
Well, are you sure it's not Hoylake?
Well, we're going to look at that a little bit closer in a minute. What about this photo, Steve?
Yeah, I would definitely say New Brighton from that angle as well.
Yep. Now, you took some video while you were there too, and if we get time, we might take a look at that. And your video taken from New Brighton matches exactly what we see in this photo. 15151A is the next one. Now, there's a whole bunch of photos which are very similar. In fact, let's go back to the index of photos. So that was the original index. And then what I did was I outlined the groupings of photos. So the very first image, as I say, was number 147. So 147, apart from 149 and 150, are all pretty much the same through to 163. We've got these two images, 149 and 150, which shows the Coast Guard building and the wind turbines, and they are two very key images. So I think we'll look at those to start with. This is where the real photo forensics kicks in. So you can see we've got these lines there. Let me just reset the tilt and compass. Okay. So you see I've got that labeled 147 location. And I've got this blue line which heads out here, and we've got this red line. That one is off to, yep, that's off to the Coast Guard building. So let's see what Google Earth can tell us. Burbo Bank Wind Farm images. That's the map. So I've imported that into Google Earth, and you can see the location of the wind farm. Now, all of these wind turbines were in place here when Anthony took his video. And you can see that that blue line goes sort of right into the middle of these wind turbines here. And if we count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what do we see in his images? Here we go. How many wind turbines do we see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if we look at the geometry, and I've actually been over this with Anthony in a hangout that I did with him more recently, he agreed that the geometry actually matches exactly what we see in Google Earth for this photo that he took, which, by the way, was taken from New Brighton. So that matches our line of view there. So there's actually a line of wind turbines on that side and a line on that side as well. And just out of interest while I'm here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looking at this, I believe he was looking at the middle row, but looking at this, it's also possible that he was looking at this row here. Either way,
the middle row too.
Sorry?
Going by the angles, I would also agree with it that it's the middle row.
Yeah. Now, whether it's this row or this row, and remember there's two out the side there, it's not too important because it certainly wasn't from Hoylake, because the angle from Hoylake is coming in this way. So it'd be completely wrong. And we would see multiple turbines, wouldn't we?
I think that the most you'd be able to get into a line that way is 5, maybe 4.
Mm-hmm. So just to compare the photo again.
Only 3 would ever line up from Hoylake.
Yep. Well, I'm just thinking about it because in the video that Steve took, as he pans around, you can see the two that are on their own, out to the right, and then you can see 8. And then if I check it again, we'll probably see another 8. So that's something I can actually look a little bit closer at. But the fact remains that these were actually taken from where?
Not Hoylake.
Not Hoylake. They were taken from here in New Brighton. So that was image 150, the wind turbines, and 149 was let's have a look at 149. This one here, okay, which is actually looking across to Crosby, and I know it's very blurry. But this building here, it sort of looks like a double building, is the Coast Guard building. And behind it, can you see that line there, guys?
Yeah.
Yep. So that line is actually an aerial mast. So we can see that the aerial mast in Anthony's photo is pretty much lined up with the division between the two parts of the Coast Guard building right down that seam, if you like. So let's have a look at that in Google Earth. I'll turn off the overlay for the wind farm because that'll mess us up otherwise. And let's zoom in. There's Crosby there. And let's tilt this up. And I seem to have lost, maybe I need to turn something else on. I should have a 3D view there. Doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Okay. I might actually restart that because that's quite important.
After you do this lineup, can you do me a favor again and bring up Anthony's last message to you?
Yep.
I'm going to keep hammering this home because I love to let Anthony shove his own words in his own mouth.
Okay, so it looks like we've got the 3D view working again now. You can just sort of see the tower there. I think what happened before was I still had historical imagery open. That's why I didn't see it. So there is the Coast Guard building, and you can see it's in two parts. And the tower, can we see it? Can you see that there, Shawn?
You can barely see it, yeah.
Yeah, you can barely see it. But the tower is sitting on this pad. It's a big radio tower. You can see its shadow there. Okay. And we can see that that red line where we run right through that seam means that we can triangulate Anthony's position back to this point here. And we triangulate his position out to the wind turbines photo to the same point. Now remember that 0147 was the first image that he took. 149 was of the Coast Guard building on the red line. And I might have the numbers around the back to front, but the next two images, the Coast Guard building and the wind turbines there from that location. Right. Now you wanted me to pull up that, that message. Yep. This one here.
Okay. On that video, 8 inches per mile, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. Now, do me one more favor. Draw a line from Hoylake to the Coast Guard building.
Okay. I've probably got one up already, but...
And for those in the chat wondering why I keep bringing up that quote from Riley is because that is his most recent claim. This is after this has already been debunked. This is his most recent claim. Now put it to the tower.
There we go.
And does that line up with his own picture?
No, it doesn't.
No.
So again, not at Hoylake.
Let's just get rid of the tilt. But flat. Let's look at the image again. Close that out. That one there?
Yep.
Okay. So again, there is the Coast Guard building. I don't know if I've got an enhanced one there. And there is the tower, and we can see that it's right down the middle. What do we see in Google Earth? We see it's right down the middle if we're looking from New Brighton, but it's not if we're looking from Hoylake. Just doesn't work. Okay, there's the turbines, and again a bunch of photos, and you can see that I've enhanced some of them to make it clearer. He's pointing out where the tower is, which we've already ascertained is actually the Formby Point beacon. It's not the Blackpool Tower at all. Okay. Now, as we look at these photos, and again remember that 147 was the very first image, which was supposedly taken at Hoylake. So 147 through to, I think, image 163, all pretty much the same as this. And this is a very key point, and one that Steve has helped us with his photos. Remember, we looked at the drone footage of the beacon, which is over here, and Shawn asked about that big white boat that's over there. Well, in fact, it's not a big white boat. It's actually a house. And this is a key point. And then you've got this beacon here. We notice the placement of the beacon. It's a about 8:30 position in relation to the house.
Yeah.
Okay. And so all the same through all of these images. That's the next one he jumps to there, where the placement is the same. Let's look at some images that Steve took on March 28th. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with a raw image. This is a raw image, and so Steve was trying to get the exact location. Worked out that Anthony would have just been a couple of meters further to the right, and this boy would have been a little bit to the left, further of the house. And there's an enhanced version. The raw images are very hard to see because of the haze, but using the auto levels feature and paint.net or Photoshop, then you can see you can pull out that information really, really well. And then I've stitched together a couple of the images, and you can see the red arrow. I'm pointing to the beacon. That's the Formby Point beacon. Now, this one here is, this is another key image. I need to step back to Anthony's photos to look at that. But let me see if we've got an overlay on that one. I'm not sure if we have. Ah, yes, we do. So image 147, again, this is very key because it's the very first image that Anthony presented supposedly from Hoylake. So we've got the White House there. We've got the yellow and black beacon. We've got the Formby Point beacon there. And here is an overlay of the image from Anthony's original video. Now remember that this was actually taken as a screenshot from his video. I didn't have the original photos, so I'm dealing with extremely low resolution, poor quality images to compare. That's why they look so awful. All right. So Anthony has placed his cursor on where he says Blackpool Tower is, and we can clearly see that the terrain matches exactly what we see in the photos that Steve has taken, and also the surface features. For example, this mark here that we see is this one here. This one here is this one here. You can see that the hump is that hump there. You can see that this hump there is that one there. You can see that dark feature there is this one here. And it all matches up perfectly. Now, these images here were taken by Steve from where?
New Brighton.
Yeah, you took these from New Brighton on King's Parade, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the promenade.
I got a question for you, Steve. When you took your pictures, what was the tide level?
What was the what, Sean?
What was the tide level?
The tide level, I believe, was high tide.
Okay.
Looking at the line on the lighthouse, I would say it was probably about mid-tide.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember, we looked at the comparison when the tide was right out and the guy was walking up the ladder.
Yeah.
And in Anthony's photos, you could see that the tide line was pretty much up to that black line. In your photos, we see it's about midway.
Sorry, I'm getting confused. Yeah, it was lower, way lower than Anthony's.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring up the tide levels, because if you look at the water level in Anthony's image compared to the water level in yours, there seems to be a lot less of a curve or a hump to go over. So you're actually seeing more of the land below it until you get to the water line.
Yeah, that's right. So just to reiterate Shawn's point, is that when Anthony took this photo from New Brighton, not Hoylake, the water level was actually higher because the tide was up, whereas when Steve took these photos, the tide was lower, so we can actually see more of the land on the other side there. And again, there is the wider view with the house as a reference point. We don't see it in this one here, but it still lines up the same feature. Okay.
Most of the times I've been to New Brighton, the lighthouse has always been visible from base up, but that last time it was obviously slightly covered.
Right. Okay, so is the turbines. Now we're moving on to the next photos. We get up to 163. We jump from 163 to 165. He's actually zoomed in there. 165. Okay, that's before he zoomed in. So this one is actually very important because you've got the placement of these two buoys right there, and again in relation to that White House, which there's nothing else along that that peninsula or along that coast that stands out like this White House. It's out there all on its own, and you don't see anything further until way off to the right here when you get down towards Crosby. But we've got these two buoys, a green one and a red or orange one there. And the lighthouse, which of course is at New Brighton.
Oh, ignore that. It's not relevant.
Yeah, just ignore that, not relevant at all, you know. So let's go back to Steve's images again. Remember this carefully, White House there, and the two buoys off, or buoys, as you call them, off on the angle, and I think we're down there now. Where are we? There's so many photos to look at. Let me step through till I find it. Here we go. So this is one of the photos that Steve took on March 28th, 2019. And again, we can clearly see the White House on its own and the green and the orange buoy there. Here's an enhanced version, which is much easier to see. And you can see I've stitched together a number of the images, which of course were all taken from New Brighton. And so we can see out to the end of Formby Point, I've got the beacon. Can you see that there, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So we can see the beacon, just as Anthony claimed in his photos. He could see what he thought was Blackpool Tower. And all of these images were taken by Steve from New Brighton.
Hoylake.
Not Hoylake. And it's a direct match. Okay. So,
Well, do me a favor.
yeah, go ahead.
Any chance you can bring up that quote from Anthony? On that video, 8 inches per mile, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake.
Okay, now it's going to change direction a little bit here, and I'm going to introduce this bit of software which is available when you buy your Nikon P900 Super Zoom camera. I think anybody can download this, in fact. It's called View NXI, and it's got a really helpful feature, and that as well as browsing your images like you'd expect to do, then you can also pull them up on a map if you've got the GPS feature turned on the camera. So when Steve went to, by the way, Steve did actually go to Hoylake. I should point that out. I haven't mentioned this. To start with, Steve went to Hoylake. He took a bunch of photos for us there, and we could see that the terrain and landmarks and so on certainly did not match anything that we saw in Anthony's photos, not one. And then he also went to some other locations which I'd given him, and also to New Brighton, which is what we're seeing here. So what this software does is it's pulling up the GPS data from each one of the photo files, and it's showing me the exact locations where the photos were taken from. And so, for example, we've got this one here is highlighted at the moment, which is this image here. And if I click over here, in fact, if I double click on it, and if I scroll down here, it'll show me the selection of images that were taken from that particular pin on the map. Okay, so all of those ones that are highlighted in white were taken from that location as shown on the map. So I guess in short, in summary, we can sum it all up in this image alone, is that this is the location that Anthony took the very first image from, number 0147. It's also the location that he took the photo of the wind turbines from. It's also the location that he took the photo of the Coast Guard building from, and a bunch of other photos. He also moved along the promenade, as he said, not at Hoylake, but at New Brighton, and he took a bunch of photos here. And then he went to, in fact, I think that was the third location he went, because quite early on in the piece, we've got the photos which were taken down by the lighthouse. Okay, let's double click on that. There we go, there's the lighthouse. These photos were taken by Steve, remember, not by Anthony Riley. And then the other location that Anthony was at was just round the corner here, where he took those photos across the water to the Anfield Stadium and claimed that he was at a place called where?
West Kirby.
West Kirby, when in fact West Kirby is actually over here, not over here where he claimed he was. In fact, he was, we know he was there when he took those photos, but he claimed that he was at West Kirby. So he obviously has no idea what he's talking about, or he's talking out of his...
We'll deal with that later.
Yeah. All right. So those are the locations that Anthony was taking his photos from. All of them, every single one of them, from 0147 through to, I think it was 283 or 293, all of them were taken from New Brighton. Not one of the images was taken from Hoylake, which is way over here. Okay. Over here, he claimed, No, it's even back further. He claimed that he was taking all of the images. Do I need to pull up that quote again? From
I was about to ask you.
Hoylake. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So again, from March 30th of this year, Anthony's most recent claim is, on that video, 8 inches per mile, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake.
And he also said, we drove some way down the beach as the tide was out. And yet we see in his very own photos that, in fact, the tide was in.
Almost completely high.
Yeah. That's the high tide line on the lighthouse. This is a photo that Anthony took. This is image number 165, is it? I can't see it there.
So is Anthony claiming that New Brighton only experiences a 1 foot hot tide?
Apparently.
Because there's only, I just looked, there's one rung of space on that ladder between the bottom of between the white part of the tower and the water line.
Yeah.
So Anthony's literally saying that the difference between high tide and low tide is 1 foot.
Mm-hmm.
When they average 27.
Now, I want to show something that I really, really like here. Jumping ahead in some of his images. After the images of Anfield Stadium, these ones here, which are 2.8. Well, let's start with the Anfield Stadium one. That was the first one where he pointed out Anfield Stadium from where he claimed was West Kirby. And then he showed this photo here. There's the stadium again. And again, we can show on Google Street View. I think oh no, I haven't got them there. I can show you other photos on Google Street View where we're actually looking across. I've got these photos actually overlaid, which matches the view. But then he steps to these photos here. Let me see.
Heat shield in chat. I have to address this. He tags us both and says, "I know what happened. Riley saw a sign that said Hoylake 26 kilometers that way and completely disregarded the numbers and assumed he was already there."
Yeah, I think so. He's obviously very confused about locations and so on. So here's image 288, and he's obviously not lay flat on his belly here. And 289, he's sort of panning across. And 290, and I mentioned this earlier in this hangout, we get to this one and you see this little gap here in the barrier, and you can see what I thought looked like a groove or something like that. And you get some more of it there. Okay, there it is there. And I stitched those images together. There it is. There's a stitched image. Hang on. Here we go. There's a stitched image that's enhanced, and you can see that gap there. Well, I really love this one because thanks to Steve and his efforts, let's go back to New Brighton, down on the promenade, and you can see I've tagged there image 288 location, also image 0165. And if we go right down to Street View, right about there, and we turn around, okay, and let's look up and down. So that's actually looking towards Hoylake. This is the New Brighton Promenade, and that's looking towards Liverpool, and that's probably the lighthouse I'm seeing right there. Yep. But let's look across the road here, and let's zoom right in. And this is what we're actually looking at in that photo. Now, unfortunately, I can't zoom in any closer, but I got that photo up here. So let me... So what we're seeing here is...
Are you going to the same size?
Sorry?
Are you going to size it the same size?
Yeah, it gets pretty small in that one if I do.
Yeah, but it lets us line up everything nice and tightly.
So we're down to about that size there. Okay. So that bit of shadow there, which I think is probably a bit hard to see because it's so small now, is the shadow cast off here. And that bit there, that light bit, is the sun shining on there. And here is the gap. This is where you go down the stairs, and you've got the steel work on the railing. And then, of course, you've got that. So that's what we're seeing there. So thanks to Steve and his efforts, we managed to find exactly where Anthony was when he took the image. And I would say that, what's going on there? I would say that they didn't actually even get out of the car. They actually drove along here. There's an empty parking space. They pulled in there and they took some photos through the window, because we can see the edge of the barrier, and we're not looking down on top of the barrier. It looks like it's, you know, pretty
at the same level or below.
Yeah. So I think
going by the difference on the actual Google Earth picture and Anthony, I'm going to guess that they're actually below.
Yeah. Okay. So so that's that one there. Let's exit street view. Oops, exit ground level view. So once again, as I showed in the photo software, this is in Google Earth, the locations that Anthony was at. The first images were taken here. Image 147 taken from New Brighton. Image 165 was taken from over here. Image 288, which was the panorama which I just showed. All the images of the lighthouse, where in fact he was lay flat down on his belly when he took those photos in the video, but of course he wasn't 0.1 of a foot above sea level. And then the ones,
if it'd be kind enough to bring up this quote. I don't think you need to. Go ahead. On that video, 8 inches per mile, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. We drove some way up the beach as the tide was out for the first time, the first time we ever went there. That's what you're seeing in the video.
I'm glad he added that bit on the end. That's what you're seeing in the video, just in case there was any confusion about what he was saying when he said the first time ever I went there. Because remember, we are talking about the images that he presented in his video. And image 0147, which is that one there, of course. That's the key image. And yeah, thanks to the images that Steve has presented, let's go through from the top. There's the Coast Guard building again with the radio tower right down the middle of the scene between the two buildings. Taken from where, Steve?
New Brighton.
New Brighton. It's this building is called Elderly Apartments, which is another very standout landmark in the photo that Anthony took. This is the black and yellow marker next to the white house that stands out all by its own. There's a stitch image right to the end of the Formby point and the beacon, which we can just see there. It'll be interesting when they replace that beacon actually to get some new photos of it from New Brighton. And comparison to image 0147, the very first image supposedly taken from Hoylake, we can see that the features all match, the landmarks, the placement of the supposedly the tower, which Anthony is pointing out with his cursor by placing it there on the tower through the end. So, you know, we could go for hours actually doing some even further analysis of these images. We could do a whole separate video about the lighthouse and the tide and all that sort of thing, and the calculations that he did. But I think that we've demonstrated well and truly that Anthony took all of these images from New Brighton. None of his images were taken from Hoylake. But I have to say at this point, there is one concession that we need to make to Anthony. He was right about something that he said that we were wrong about. Because earlier on, in our previous analysis, we had placed him at a car park location called Liso. And where is that car park? Is it that one there? That's the one, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this area is called Liso. And we figured that, there's Liso there. We figured that Anthony had actually taken some of the images from the beach, that he had parked his car here and gone down to the beach and taken some of those images. We were wrong about that. He didn't take any of the images from Liso. All of the images were taken from New Brighton. Now, why did we think that he had taken the images from Liso? It was because
we assumed he was actually looking at Blackpool Tower.
Yeah, he insisted at the start, of course, that he was looking at Blackpool Tower. And so based on that, we used the information in his images to I accidentally deleted one of the lines out to Blackpool Tower. But these black lines, what we did was, assuming that he was actually looking at Blackpool Tower, there's Blackpool Tower there, we drew these lines in here to work out the maximum left and right margin. So we've got the White House, which is right there. We knew that he was looking to the left of the White House, and we knew that he was looking to the right of the end of Formby Point. So it was somewhere between these two lines, these two margins, and drawing a line from Blackpool Tower right down the middle of those two black lines took us to that car park at Liso, right in the middle there. So we had assumed that he had taken some of the images. So for that, Anthony, I concede that you were not at the car park at Liso. I was incorrect on that point, which was based on your insistence that you were filming Blackpool Tower. However, all the rest of the images that you took, in fact, all of the images, I should say, let me get that right, all of the images that you took were filmed from New Brighton. Not one of the images that you took were taken from Hoylake, as you claimed.
Now, I would like to address one thing real quick, because he's been going on this trip. He's claiming because you were lying about him, he keeps bringing up observations he made after this video and saying that you were talking about them. No, we had this. What we're doing here has nothing to do with your and Ranty's trip to Hoylake, which you did go to Hoylake for those. This had to do with your very first big reveal video introducing you to the flat earth with proof that was all based on a lie. So
Yes, he's taken great pleasure in calling me and you and others liars about all of this. As I said, in January of this year, he posted a video which was completely out of the blue after almost 2 years. I thought that we'd all moved on from this, but no, he posted the video. Where is it? There's the cameraman. This one here, Dazza the cameraman lied to ballers about me. And that was a live hangout. Oh, let's have a look at the description here. My first observation was from where?
not Hoylake.
Hoylake. And basically you shouldn't see Blackpool Tower from there. Ballers didn't like it. And it needed overt dishonesty from Dazza the cameraman to debunk my work. overt dishonesty from Dazza the cameraman to debunk my work. And then he gives these excuses. But again, remember that this was posted on January 26, 2019.
Can I just say, Dazza, from Hoylake, I videoed Blackpool Tower quite a few times, and you can see Blackpool Tower obviously from Hoylake, but it depends on the tide. Sometimes, if it's high tide, you are only going to see the triangle at the top, and sometimes you're going to see half the tower, but you're never going to see more than that. You know,
Yeah.
you're never going to see the bottom of Blackpool. You're never going to see the ballroom.
No.
So
but Steve, that's exactly why I brought up the point about the two comparison pictures earlier about what level was the tide at, because tide plays a huge role in how much you're going to see of the tower.
exactly, yeah.
You know, if they go out there at low tide, they're going to see more of the tower because that effectively raises their elevation above the water.
Yeah, but even at low tide, you're still never, ever going to see Blackpool or the ballroom. It doesn't happen. I've been on low tide, and it doesn't happen. So, you know, whatever they claim the lights are on the water on their video is BS.
This image here was taken from Hilbury Island, which is even a little bit further away from Blackpool Tower than position at Hoylake, where Anthony claims he was. We can see Blackpool Tower there, and according to Anthony's logic, then the rest of the tower and the ballroom and the road in front and everything down to sea level is all compressed in about a few feet. It just makes no sense at all. And as we were pointing out about the tides, you imagine the effect that actually it would be good to try and find out the dimensions that we're seeing here, maybe like with the guardrail and all that sort of thing around there. Imagine the difference it would make with the tide. I don't know what the tide was here when the photo was taken, but it would certainly be an interesting exercise, wouldn't it?
I believe the black markers is high tide mark.
Right.
Yeah.
That would make sense. So, Steve, it would be a very interesting exercise when you've got a particularly clear day, if you're able to take some photos. Well, we've got this one as reference, almost high tide, but also take another one at low tide from this was from Hilbury Island, so it's quite good being able to look through the turbines, but I don't know if that's an option to you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Hilbury Island, there's a fair bit of elevation there compared to the beach level. But yeah, I can certainly go back to Hoylake anytime and, pick high or low tide, and I can get different images, which I have done anyway. I've got just my computer now of different, levels of the tower being shown. I've got some where just the top part of the tower is being shown, and half the tower. It depends on the tide.
Well, that actually leads me to a proposition that's going to impose a lot on your time. Tides have what, like a 6-hour span, 6 to 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Any chance you can make a day trip to Hoylake and actually catch between high and low tide on the same day?
It could, I'm only a 40-minute drive away, so I could go, one day when it's high tide, one day when it's low tide, and I will take images either way, which I do have some anyway, Shawn. I think I said as some the other day. You can see the difference in the space of a couple of hours.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because the reason I bring it up is because Anthony's counter claim to all of this debunking of his first video is to say that we were talking about a video that him and Ranty did like almost a year later, which is not what we were talking about.
No.
But if we do want to talk about that video, I just want to say they've said that they went out at low tide for this nighttime shot, and the tide charts actually match that. So they actually went out and filmed at low tide. I want to see what the difference is between low tide and a high tide from their same position.
I mean, I would agree with that, Shawn. Low tide, you're going to get half, maybe just under half the tower. That's roughly what I've videoed. But high tide, you are only going to get the triangle part at the top.
Now, actually looking at Google Earth, if we're actually at Hoylake, let me turn on the map for the turbines there. So yeah, we can actually look past some turbines anyway, which would be very helpful for context. And that's from right down there on the beach, just down from that ramp. That's where Anthony said that he was filming from.
Yeah.
So that would be fantastic to actually be looking through the.
Actually, zoom back into Hoylake real quick, because when Ranty and Anthony went back to their actual Hoylake trip at night, the position their camera was at when they got their money shot was actually at the top of the ramp next to a telescope, or one of the little pay for binocular thingies.
Yep.
Right there. You can barely see it.
Yep. Let's go down to the.
They were next to that when they did their nighttime shot with the low tide.
Yeah. And Shawn, I've done the same shot, and I've got pretty much a similar image, but from the image I've got, it was a lot more clearer than Riley's image and Ranty's image, and you can basically see it's not even half the tower from the image. So that's a low tide. But, you know, high tide, I've done the same image from the same place. High tide, you just get in the last 100 feet of the tower.
This imagery was taken in 2011, so it's not showing that telescope there, but I think they were placed around about here, weren't they?
Yeah, they were by that sign. There's supposed to be like a little pay-for binocular thing there, at least in their videos.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah, well, this was from 2011, this imagery, so might not have been there at that time. So there we have it. So it wasn't Hoylake, it was New Brighton.
Yeah,
and
it was BS.
Yeah. So back on April 18th, 2017, when I was having discussions with Anthony, this was just before I presented my first analysis video, which Anthony struck with a privacy strike and had removed from YouTube. We all know why. Then he said, I have the results and look forward to you matching them up. You will only be able to match them relating to the house and the distance to the edge. Then you will be able to satisfy yourself that they match and that I was actually where I claim I was. I look forward to seeing your admission that I wasn't lying, mistaken, or just wrong. Oh, and a public correction would be nice too, says Anthony. Indeed, Anthony, I look forward to your public correction, because what was it that you said in your video? If you're wrong about something, just admit it. Let's hear that again, shall we?
It's not okay to be wrong about something and flex your dick in such a way that you think that that's going to somehow cover over the crack. No, if you're wrong about something, just.
Indeed, Anthony, it's time that you took your own advice, I think. You do owe me an apology. You accused me of lying about you. You reiterated time and time again that all of your images were taken from Hoylake, and you have denied everything that I've said in the previous analysis, which I did, apart from the fact that you know, we said that you were at the car park at Liso. Sure, we concede that you were never there, but the fact remains that none of your images were taken from Hoylake. They were all taken from New Brighton. And so if anybody owes anyone an apology, Anthony, you owe me an apology, you owe Shawn an apology, and you owe everybody else who you have called a liar an apology. You were not at Hoylake. I don't know what your reasoning is for saying that you were at Hoylake, but you clearly weren't. So if you're as honest and decent as you like to think you are, as you've stated, if you're wrong about something, just admit it. It's time to front up Anthony, admit you were wrong, admit that you were not at Hoylake, and that all of your images were actually taken from New Brighton. And if you can't accept that, then you need to explain why we were looking at photos of the New Brighton lighthouse in many of your earlier videos. Shawn?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any more to go over?
Unless I've missed anything, is there anything you can think of that I haven't covered?
Well, I'd like to personally address Anthony on this, because this is how me and him first got really started being head-to-head. I got Sly involved in it. I got you involved in it. We've all done our we've all done the task of actually presenting evidence that he actually was lying. You know, Anthony says that he follows the evidence no matter where it goes. We've provided him evidence, and to him and the whole world, that we know he was never in Hoylake. And he's just totally hand-waved dismissed it. And if you bring up that quote for me one more time, we've shown that none of his pictures were taken from Hoylake, but yet he still says on that on that video, 8 inches per mile, the whole lot was taken from deep into the beach at Hoylake. This is something he said 6 or 8 days ago, after 2 years of us giving him evidence that we know he's lying. So, yes, Anthony, we're just those damn Yanks that don't know anything about the topography over there, but yet we postulated that you might not have been looking at the tower. We've proven that you weren't, and yet you called us out and saying that we didn't know because you live there and you know the landscape.
Where's Kirby?
But all you've done, Anthony, with pushing this forward is to bring this back up and make it more fresh, so an even larger audience sees how dishonest you have been since day one. And like always, you've only shown.
Yeah, well, faced with facts, you still don't quit. No room for doubt when you're full of it. Oh no, you're talking out your ass again. Don't pretend, cause in truth, my friend, you can't defend all the words that went out of your rear end. Quit talking out your wazoo.